Sorry guys, no time for a teaser. We've got to talk about whether or not downtime mode is even necessary in Pathfinder 2nd Edition on today's episode of The Local Disaster Tour Guide. Hello travelers and tourists, my name is Mark and I am the Local Disaster Tour Guide. That's right, I am a storyteller who was totally not planning on using the shopping episode to make up for my lack of preparation this week. No, really. Welcome to a journey through the fantastic world of TTRPGs like Pathfinder and Starfinder, and welcome back to Storytelling in Pathfinder 2e, a series where we take a look at the tips, tricks, and advice that Paizo offers storytellers to help us be more successful at our gaming tables. This is a series that is intended for storytellers of every skill level from beginner to advanced, and even if Pathfinder 2e is not necessarily your preferred game, I still encourage you to stick around and be a part of the conversation, because studying a variety of games can often give us interesting ideas to bring back to our preferred game. So, regardless of what you've been playing or how long you've been playing it, I hope this conversation is beneficial to you. Today we're going to be taking a look at a very simple but potentially very important question: is downtime mode even necessary? We have been looking at downtime mode play in Pathfinder 2e for several weeks now, and we've been talking about different facets of downtime mode, what purpose it serves inside of the story, and many of the different rules that fall under downtime mode play. But there's one question that we haven't taken a look at, which is downtime mode even important? And this is actually a subject that is discussed in the Game Mastery Guide on page 22. They devote a few paragraphs to the question, is downtime mode necessary, and what sort of circumstances or games might not use downtime mode? So as always, you can check out the Game Mastery Guide if you want to read up on that subject, and today we're going to dive into that conversation a little bit as well. But before we do any of that, it is necessary for you all to do all of that YouTube stuff. By liking this video and sharing it, you help to feed the algorithm. And by jumping down to the comments section and leaving your thoughts, you're helping the conversation in this community to grow. Also, please feel free to subscribe to the channel. You can check out my free Discord group and my Patreon. Both of those are linked in the video description. And let's get started. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the question, is downtime mode necessary? And if you'd like me to save you some view time on this video, the answer is not always. Alright, good video guys. See you later. Okay, so the basic premise of the video is this. While downtime mode is a specific mode of play that Paizo includes in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, they do acknowledge that of the various modes of play, this is the mode of play that is the easiest to exclude because it may not serve your story or your group. In short, not all stories need downtime mode, and not all groups desire to use downtime mode rules, and that is perfectly okay. One of the principles we've discussed several times in this series is Paizo gives you permission to make this game your own, and if downtime mode doesn't serve your group and your game, toss it. But beyond that simple statement, it is valuable to at least stop and consider why downtime mode might not be necessary, and what you might need to consider as a storyteller if you're going to deliberately exclude downtime mode from the games that you play. Now, Paizo essentially gives us two reasons why a game might not include downtime mode: no time and no interest. No time reflects games or stories where downtime mode runs against the type of story or game that you want to run. Games that rely on very high-tension scenarios, games where players are trying to beat the clock, if you will, don't fit well with downtime mode play. Several years ago, one of the game masters in my group ran a story where a group of cultists were attempting to free the Whispering Tyrant from Gallowspire, and our party was in a race against time to stop these cultists from achieving their evil plan. And in that game, it was a breakneck pace to the story. Every time we stopped to rest, every time we deviated from a path even slightly, it would play into how much time we had to stop these cultists from carrying out their scheme, and our group had to make very difficult decisions about what we did, when we did it, and how we approached things. And there were occasions where the difference between stopping an occultist from achieving his goals or failing to stop said occultist boiled down to literally a single round. That game was tense, it was extremely fast-paced, and there was no downtime mode to speak of. Now, not all games or story arcs are as intense as the one my friend ran, but you can see how with a story like that, the storyteller might decide, I'm not going to use these rules because they do not fit with the kind of story I'm presenting to my players. The other reason that a group might set aside downtime mode rules is simply there's no interest. Maybe the storyteller is willing to run downtime mode, maybe it can fit inside of the game, but maybe the players just don't care. I mean, how many times in this series am I going to make an offhanded joke about how popular the crafting rules are in Pathfinder 2e? Different people play this game for different reasons, and for some people, the thrill of exploring the dungeon and battling the monsters, that's what they come for. The nuance of building a kingdom, running a shop, or crafting your own sword is not really an engaging part of the story for them, and the thing is, that's okay. If the group would prefer to skip over downtime mode so that they can get back to slaying dragons and looting dungeons, that's their prerogative. As a storyteller, there may not be enough time in your game, or there may not be enough interest in your group to make use of downtime mode, and if that is the case, this is a section of the rules that you can relatively easily set aside and it not be detrimental to your gaming experience. But as a storyteller, if you're going to make the conscious decision to cut downtime mode out of your games, it is worthwhile to stop and think about how that's going to impact your game and what you might need to communicate with your players if you're going to do that. And the first principle here is this: if as a storyteller you plan to cut downtime mode out for whatever reason, I strongly encourage you, tell your players about this. Certain options inside of Pathfinder 2e are geared towards downtime mode play, with an easy example of that being crafting. I swear I will stop taking shots at crafting eventually. It would be very frustrating for a player to invest very heavily in crafting options only to run into a game where they never have time to actually sit down and use those options. They would feel like portions of their character were basically wasted. So as a storyteller, if you're going to cut downtime mode out of your game, it is very important, tell your players, hey, this is the kind of game we're running, this is how we're going to approach these particular options, this is what you need to know about how this game will be managed so that you can make choices appropriate to the game. Communication is extremely important for any gaming group, and if you're going to make a major rules change to a system, like cutting out downtime mode, that's definitely something you want to communicate with your players. And in addition to communicating with your players that you're going to be cutting downtime mode out, you also want to consider some other aspects of the game that you will need to talk about with your players as well. Managing Pathfinder 2e without downtime could come in a lot of formats, and as a storyteller, you want to make sure your players know what that format is going to look like. For example, maybe your players will have downtime mode, you just don't want to use time at the table for downtime mode play. If that were the case, your characters could still invest in downtime focused skills, but you would need to have some good communication in between games so that if a character was using a particular downtime activity, the appropriate benefits of that choice could be taken into account. In particular, there are 3 elements of the rules that are associated with Downtime Mode that I think are worth considering in a little more detail and communicating clearly with your players about: resting, healing, and inventory. Resting and healing kind of go hand in hand in this conversation, and as a game master, you might decide that you just want to skip over the resting and healing portion of playing Pathfinder 2e. For example, what's the point in making characters set up a watch and roll perception for their watch if you already know that no enemies are going to be attacking them? And if your players are going to need a week to recover from their adventure, and you know nothing important is going to happen during that week, then there's no harm in just skipping over that week and picking up the story when your characters are healed and ready to continue getting into their regular shenanigans. If you're going to cut out resting and healing, that's okay, but as a storyteller you want to communicate to your players, this is how I will be handling these rules, and this is when I plan to allow you to benefit from resting and healing. A more complex conversation, but still one that you want to consider, is inventory. Pathfinder 2e is a game that assumes that your PCs will have a certain amount of gear. They will have so many items, so many consumables, so many things to use on their adventure. And in our conversations around Downtime Mode, we have seen a lot of different systems and concepts that can impact the gear that your players might have. Things like crafting, things like buying and selling, these are going to influence what your PCs have access to, and if you cut Downtime Mode just completely out of the game, suddenly the question of how your characters are going to fill their inventory becomes very important. Now, as a storyteller, you can approach this a lot of different ways. One of the things that I have done in the past with my gaming group is I will give my characters a certain amount of gold that their characters get to, quote-unquote, spend. I might tell my players, all of your characters have 10,000 gold to acquire items, and then I will tell my players, and you get to tell me exactly what acquire means for them. Maybe one character does go out and barter and buy and sell and purchase the items that they're looking for. Maybe one character inherits something important from their family. Maybe the party rogue went shopping. The how of the items being acquired doesn't matter. I gave my characters a certain amount of gold and told them, get what you need and tell me how you got it. How you address issues of inventory as a storyteller is going to vary, but what is important is that you communicate clearly with your players so that they know what to expect. That is the theme of this whole video. But that's all I've got for you on this topic today. I know that this topic was relatively short and simple, but this is a conversation that you might find yourself having with your group, and it is something as a storyteller that you might need to think about. So, let me turn the conversation over to you. What are your thoughts on the question, is Downtime Mode necessary? Is this a mode of play that your group uses, or is your group one of the groups that tends to skip over this aspect of the game? Leave your thoughts in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like the video and share it, and if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. You can check out my free Discord and my Patreon. Both of those are linked in the video description. And as always, thank you for being here, thank you for being a part of the conversation, and have a wonderful day.